I never thought betrayal would come in silence. No warning, no confrontation, just erased. That morning started like any other. The city outside my window hummed with the usual chaos, horns blaring, tires hissing on wet asphalt, the distant echo of sirens bouncing between glass towers. My coffee sat untouched on the desk as I stared at my inbox, scrolling past the endless chain of updates, projections, and contracts I poured my life into. Then I saw it. An email. Short, surgical, lethal. Effective immediately. Your services are no longer required. Thank you for your contributions. That was it. No signature. No explanation. No call. Just a sentence that gutted 10 years of loyalty like a butcher's blade. I sat there, frozen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard as if I could type my way out of reality. 10 years. 10 years of building Strathmore from a mid-tier consulting firm into a juggernaut. Late nights, missed birthdays, shattered relationships. All for what? To be cut loose with a line that could fit in a tweet? My phone buzzed. It was Nadia, my assistant, my right hand, the only person who understood how much of myself I'd buried in this company. Alex, her voice trembled. I just saw the announcement. What announcement? My voice came out cold, brittle. They posted it on LinkedIn, she whispered. Your replacement. His already in the building. The world tilted. I opened the app with shaking hands, and there it was, a glossy photo of some slick-haired Ivy League golden boy shaking hands with Thomas, our CEO. Strathmore welcomes our new Chief Strategy Officer, Matthew Clark. My title, my role, my life, replaced overnight, like I was a piece of old furniture. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 1,000 images crashed through my mind. Late-night calls with Thomas, the promises, the plans we drew on napkins over whiskey. He used to call me the architect. Said I was the backbone of Strathmore's rise. And now, this. I closed the app and stared out at the skyline, the glass towers gleaming like knives in the rain. Something inside me broke that day, not in a way that left me weak, but in a way that made me dangerous. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It's fuel. It burns hotter than ambition, hotter than greed. It forges something harder than loyalty. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't beg. I just sat there, calm as a corpse, and started planning. First, I needed information. Who was Matthew Clark? Why was Thomas willing to toss me aside for him? I dug deep. Background checks, old press releases, financial ties. And the deeper I went, the clearer it became. Matthew wasn't just some prodigy. He was leverage. Thomas needed him for something big. That meant Strathmore was vulnerable. And vulnerabilities are opportunities. That night, I walked out of that office for the last time without saying a word. But as I passed the glass doors and saw my reflection staring back at me, I made a promise. They would regret this. Every single one of them. It started small, quiet. I reached out to old contacts, the ones who owed me favors, the ones who whispered secrets over late-night drinks. I pieced together the truth. Strathmore were preparing for a massive merger with Alios Capital, the kind of deal that would triple their valuation overnight. But there was a catch. Alios wanted proof of market dominance. And guess who built the entire dominance strategy? Me. Guess who had the blueprints locked in his head? And nowhere else? Also me. That was the crack in the foundation. All I had to do was split it wide open. I called Nadia. She picked up on the first ring, her voice tight with anger. Tell me what you need, she said before I could even speak. Everything, I replied. Every client list, every vendor relationship, every shred of data you can get without triggering alarms. She didn't hesitate. That's the thing about loyalty. It cuts both ways. Within days, I had what I needed. But stealing their data wasn't enough. I didn't want revenge that burned fast and faded. I wanted something permanent. Something surgical. I wanted to take their future. So I built something new. From scratch. Nights bled into mornings as I sat in my apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and glowing screens. I called it Vanguard, a lean, aggressive consultancy designed to do what Strathmore couldn't. Move fast, break patterns, own the market. But speed wasn't enough. I needed clients, big ones, ones that would cripple Strathmore when they left. And I knew exactly where to start. Alios. They wanted dominance. I could give them revolution. I sent the first message under an alias, just a whisper in the storm. A line they couldn't ignore. I know what Strathmore promised you. I can give you more. Meet me. 2 days later, I was sitting across from Alios' chief negotiator in a dim hotel bar, the city sprawling like molten gold outside the window. He was older, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who could smell weakness a mile away. "Who are you?" he asked. "Someone who knows Strathmore better than they know themselves," I said, leaning forward. "And someone who can guarantee you'll own this market for the next decade." He didn't laugh, didn't blink. He just said, "Prove it." And I did. For hours, I laid it out, Strathmore's real position, their blind spots, their dependencies. Then I showed him Vanguard, agile, ruthless, engineered for disruption. By the time I was done, his glass of whiskey sat untouched. "You take this deal," I said softly, "and Strathmore will be a footnote in your annual report." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. That was the night Vanguard was born for real. But here's the thing about revenge. It's never a straight line. It's a maze, full of traps you don't see until they snap shut. And one of those traps had my name on it. The deal with Alios wasn't a signature on paper. It was a loaded gun pointed at Strathmore's head, and I was the one holding the trigger. But pulling it too fast would ruin everything. I needed precision, timing, and the right players on my side. Alios didn't just want results. They wanted blood. They wanted dominance so absolute it would leave the competition crawling for scraps. And to deliver that, I needed one thing Strathmore thought they'd buried with me: their clients. That night, as I walked back from the hotel, the rain-slicked streets glimmered like veins of silver under the streetlights. I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost anymore. That grief had burned away. All that remained was a fire, the kind that consumes everything in its path until there's nothing left but smoke and ruin. The first move was easy. I picked off the clients who liked me more than they liked Strathmore. The ones I'd saved from disasters, the ones who knew my worth. A whisper here, a coffee meeting there, and suddenly contracts started to shift. Quietly at first. No big announcements. Just signatures slipping across tables in dimly lit corners. And for a while, it was perfect. Vanguard grew like a shadow spreading under a locked door. Every win tasted like justice. Every client that crossed over felt like pulling a brick out of Strathmore's foundation. But then something happened. Something I didn't see coming. Nadia called me at 2 a.m. Her voice was a blade of panic cutting through the static. "Alex," she hissed, "they know." I sat up in bed, heart pounding. "What do you mean they know?" "About Vanguard. About you. Thomas called an emergency board meeting tonight. They're moving fast. They've already hired a forensic team to track the leaks." For a second, the room tilted. I'd been careful, no, meticulous. Burner phones, encrypted emails, meetings off the grid. How the hell did they find out? Who told them? I asked. There was silence. Then, so soft I almost miss it, she said, "I think it was Matthew." Of course, the golden boy. The man who replaced me wasn't just ambitious. He was ruthless. And now he was hunting me. "Pull back," Nadia whispered. "Disappear for a while. This is getting dangerous." But I couldn't. Not now. I was too deep. And if I ran, everything I'd built, everything I'd fought for, would vanish. "No," I said coldly. "We go bigger. If they want a war, we give them one." I hung up and stared out the window at the sleeping city. Somewhere in those towers, Thomas and Matthew were planning my execution. But they didn't understand something. They'd already lost. They just didn't know it yet. I spent the next 48 hours without sleep, working like a man possessed. Every connection, every deal, every ounce of leverage I'd been holding back, I unleashed it all. Alios wasn't just on board now. They were in the cockpit, ready to crash Strathmore into the ground if I said the word. But even as I made my moves, something felt wrong. Too quiet, too easy. Then the hammer dropped. I walked into the office I'd rented for Vanguard. Sleek glass, leather chairs, the smell of fresh paint still hanging in the air, and stopped dead in my tracks. Two men in suits were waiting for me. Government badges glinted under the fluorescent lights. "Mr. Carter," the taller one said, his voice flat as stone. "We need to talk." My stomach turned to ice. They showed me documents, allegations of corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, breaches of fiduciary duty, charges that could bury me so deep I'd never see daylight again. And at the bottom of the stack was a name, a signature, Matthew Clark. That son of a bitch had gone nuclear. He'd turned the law into a weapon and aimed it straight at my head. I played it calm, nodding, answering their question with the ease of a man who'd spent years in boardrooms outwitting sharks. When they left, I locked the door and let the rage consume me. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the glass of water I poured. He wanted war? Fine. I'd burn the world down. The next step wasn't business. It wasn't strategy. It was personal. I needed someone inside Strathmore, someone who hated them as much as I did. And I knew just a person. When Nadia walked into that coffee shop the next day, her eyes were red, her shoulders hunched like the weight of the world was crushing her. She didn't even sit before the words tumbled out. "They fired me," she whispered. I stared at her. "When?" "Last night. Thomas said they couldn't trust me." Her voice cracked. "He thinks I'm helping you." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You are helping me," I said. "And now, you're going to help me finish this." She looked at me, something fierce sparking in her eyes through the tears. "What do you need?" "Everything," I said. "Every dirty secret. Every skeleton in their closet. If I'm going down, I'm taking them with me." That night, Nadia gave me the keys to the kingdom. Internal memos, undisclosed deals, compliance violations. They were sitting on a mountain of crime so high it could blot out the sun. All I had to do was tip it over. But as I stared at the files, the rage inside me shifted into something colder, sharper. Burning Strathmore to the ground wasn't enough anymore. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted control. And to get it, I needed to make a move so bold, so outrageous, that Thomas and Matthew would never see it coming. I wasn't going to destroy Strathmore. I was going to take it. And the first step was to make Alios an offer they couldn't refuse. When the call from Alios came in, I was standing by the window of my penthouse, watching the city bleed orange into night. Their voice was calm, too calm, like the surface of a lake hiding a shark beneath. "Alex," the man said, "we've reviewed your proposal. It's ambitious." Ambitious was code for insane. I was offering them everything I'd built with Vanguard, every client, every contract, every inch of ground I'd clawed back from Strathmore, but in exchange, they'd help me execute the most hostile takeover the market had seen in a decade. "Ambitious wins wars," I said quietly. A long silence stretched across the line. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then, finally, the man chuckled. "I like the way you think." Those 6 words were the sound of a kingdom falling. The next 72 hours were a blur of lawyers, shell corporations, and midnight wire transfers. Every piece of leverage Alios had, I amplified. Every weakness in Strathmore's structure, I exploited. Their debt? Bought out. Their suppliers? Paid to walk. Their investors? Whispered poison until they panicked and pulled the plug. And all the while, I played the press like a violin. Anonymous leaks about financial instability. Rumors of executive misconduct. Photos of Thomas and Matthew at private dinners with competitors. The story hit every major outlet within hours, and by morning, Strathmore's stock wasn't just dropping, it was free-falling. Matthew called me that afternoon. His voice was a cocktail of rage and desperation. "What the hell are you doing, Alex?" I let the silence hang for a beat, savoring it, taking back what's mine. "You think this is over? You think you can destroy us and walk away?" He was breathing hard now, the mask cracking. "I will bury you. You hear me? Bury you." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Matthew, you already tried." And then I hung up. That night, I celebrated, not with champagne, not with noise, but with silence. The kind of silence you only get when you're standing on the edge of something monumental. But the war wasn't over yet, because Thomas still held the golden share. One single vote that could block the acquisition. and he wasn't going down without a fight. So I called him. When he answered, his voice was tired, brittle like old glass. "Alex," he said, "what do you want?" "You know what I want." He sighed. "You were the best I ever had, and you threw it away for this." "No," I said softly. "You threw it away the day you chose Matthew." Silence. Then, quietly, he asked, "What happens if I don't sign?" I didn't hesitate. Then I burn it all. The files Nadia gave me, every violation, every dirty deal, it goes public. The regulators will feast on what's left of Strathmore's carcass. There was a long pause. Then, in a voice, although I almost didn't hear it, he said, "You always were a ruthless bastard." I smiled. "You made me this way." The next morning, the news broke. Alios acquires Strathmore in historic takeover. My name wasn't in the headlines, but it didn't need to be. Everyone who mattered knew exactly who pulled the strings. And Matthew? He didn't just lose his job. He lost everything. The board threw him to the wolves to save face. And when the dust settled, he was gone, a ghost in a tailored suit. As for Thomas, he walked away with enough money to disappear, which was fine by me. I didn't want him poor. I wanted him forgotten. Standing in the boardroom of what used to be Strathmore, now under the Alios banner, I looked out at the skyline and felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just a hollow echo of a war won at the cost of something I couldn't name. Nadia came up beside me, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She didn't say anything, just handed me a glass of scotch. "To victory," she said finally. I clinked my glass against hers, staring out at the city. "No," I murmured. "To revenge." But as the words left my lips, something in the back of my mind whispered the truth. Revenge wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, and the game had just changed.